Welcome to another run on American Truck Simulator. Let me trying to make some more videos here. Because the whole quarantine thing, maybe it's my small part of helping people, entertain people. So yeah, keep making some more movies or videos here. Not movies. They're not very big budget. um, Alright, I'll shut this off for now. But we're over here in Coos Bay. We've got a reservoir tank. Pull it up here. Reservoir tank weighing in at 22,500 pounds. So not real heavy. And it says it's going to take us about 4.5 hours to get there. So without further ado, I guess I'm going to get trucking. But anyways, so a lot of things. Of course, people are more or less stuck at home nowadays. So I don't know. They've put a kind of a ban on things until the end of April now. So I really don't know if we'll be getting back to work or what's going to happen there. But I guess until I find out, I'll just keep making some videos and stuff like that. But if you've got Netflix, you gotta check out what the hell is it? I can't remember exactly the name, but Tiger King. It's bought this guy, Joe Exotic, who is a gay redneck who carries guns and has tigers and all kind of shit. So yeah, it's definitely kind of a interesting concept, interesting thing. But of course, he tries to pay some way to kill this lady who is like a rival zoo, I guess you could say. But anyways, she ends up causing a bunch of trouble for him and everything else, and stuff like that. So she literally ends up pushing him to his breaking point. Is honestly my opinion as to why he wanted her killed. But like, I'm not saying you should probably necessarily go out and make plans to kill somebody, but she's not an innocent victim in my opinion. She's kind of a cunt. In fact, she is a cunt. And and you might be pissed off me using that word, but that's the only way I can describe her. I mean, when you get hooked up with this guy who you have millions of dollars, who has millions of dollars, and then he you convince him to get into this venture with you, and you're breeding bobcats and such and all this kind of thing, and this guy gets a restraining order on you because you're an angry person and you threaten with violence and death, and you take his gun and hide it and shit like that. Meanwhile, then you go ahead and buy a 45 caliber. Um, and then all of a sudden he comes up missing. He just fucking disappears and is never heard or seen from ever fucking again. Really? Really? And it's like the police didn't handle it very well. They pretty much fucked up the whole investigation, in my opinion. Um, I'm not saying what Joey Exotic did was necessarily a great thing. Um, Obviously putting a hit out on Carol Baskin was probably not an awesome thing to do. But to tell you the truth, that bitch was worse than him. I mean, literally, it's hard for me to feel sorry for her when she's honestly a shittier person than he is in all aspects. I mean, she literally pushed him to his breaking point by saying, oh, he's this evil person who has all these tigers and he just breeds them and everything else. Well, yeah, okay, but he's breeding tigers for, in a lot of cases, zoos and everything else. I mean, I don't know. And the whole thing is kind of hypocritical because here she was at the beginning of all her bullshit. Here she is, fucking breeding bobcats and lynxes and shit to make money. And having people, and it was her big thing, you could come over and interact and pet and hold these animals. And then she's trying to shut Joe Exotic down because he's breeding tigers and having people be able to interact with them and pet them and all that kind of shit. So, to me, not only is she a fucking just a bitch and she has no personality and she creeps me out just by the looks on her face, she's just a very creepy bitch, but she's also very greedy, very vindictive, very hypocritical. She's just not a nice person. And her husband disappearing and everything else just all of a sudden vanish, and then you basically treat his kids from a previous marriage just absolutely horrible. Threaten family and everything else. Don't be going after any more money. I was nice enough to give you what I did and shit like that. And it's just like, and you mean to tell me that I guess I don't understand how what she's doing is okay, but everybody else is a piece of shit. And it's just that arrogance, that fucking I'm better than you attitude that some people have, that is just, it's bullshit. Why? What makes you better than somebody else? Nothing. That's, yeah, she just goes around acting like her shit don't stink and all that kind of stuff, and I'm sorry to say, but you can go ahead and think you're hot shit on a silver platter, but in reality you're a cold turd on a paper plate. And she's, tearing down this other doctor guy who had a bunch of tigers, and I can't remember his name now off the top of my head. But, he's got a soul patch, flavor saver, whatever you want to call it. That's about all I can remember about the guy with a big long ponytail. But, for me, there's a lot of fishy things that went on the whole thing. He was filming this reality show. This producer was. And they get in this big argument or what have you, and next thing you know, and of course this is in the midst of this bitch and her fucking weird ass husband, new one, They sue him, Joe Exotic, over some bullshit thing and somehow get some $1 million fucking settlement. Which, of course, he couldn't really have fought too much anyway. Because, well, she had a lot more fucking money from her dead husband who mysteriously vanished. Because that was the other thing, too. To legally declare somebody dead, they gotta be missing for 5 years. Well, it was literally 5 years into the day. And she literally took fucking everything. But anyways, what was I saying here? Oh, yeah. So, getting to this big lawsuit deal and all that kind of shit. And sue him for $1 million fucking dollars. And he's having a hell of a time trying to pay for this. And Joey Exotic was trying to work out a deal to the with the husband to be like, hey, look, I'll make bigger payments in the summer when I got peak season and smaller ones in the winter. Whatever. Well, then the cunt of a wife steps in, this fucking Carol Baskin bitch. She not only then says, no, you can't do this. Now, if you don't, you better stop doing these things with the tigers and let people interact with them and all this kind of shit. And she just, I'm sorry, but it's hard to feel sorry for her when she is just one of the worst people I have ever fucking heard about, seen, whatever. I mean, I'm not saying she's Hitler, but definitely Goebbels is that'd be pretty close. I mean, she just, I'm sorry, but when you're suing somebody for that amount of money just to make a point and literally taking shit like his fucking, wanting his watch off his wrist and his fucking TV out of his house and shit, like, really? But anyways, he's, as I was back, kind of got ran on here, but she sues him for this money, and he's got this TV deal that's possibly going to come out. I mean, filming's basically done. They're just talking to a network to see if they can pick it up and things like that. So then all of a sudden his studio explodes and just turns into this raging inferno and everything is fucking gone. And I mean, I don't mean to necessarily make up a bunch of assumptions or anything, but if come to find out that bitch is the one that set the shit on fire, yeah, I would not be too surprised. And if it eventually comes out that she did in fact was the reason for her husband's complete disappearance, that certainly would not surprise me either. She just, if you get a chance to watch it, or if you have watched it, you know what I mean. She just gives off this type of vibe, just this personality. She just makes my fucking skin crawl because she's just so fake. Like, you know, it's like she's trying too hard to be nice and everything else. But meanwhile, she's probably one of the most vile human beings on the planet. But then she's putting on this show and this face and fucking stupid shit. Hey, all you cats and kittens. Welcome to me running around my fucking zoo and being stupid. And it's just... And meanwhile, she's quite possibly the reason for somebody's fucking death. And taking all this fucking money. I mean, it's just... Not only does her voice and her laugh just irritate the fuck out of me, her as a person, you can just tell she's just... There's just something about her makes you go, ugh. Just gives you this fucking shiver up your spine type deal. And part of me... I mean, don't get me wrong, they all said, oh yeah, I wish I could kill this bitch and everything else. but his evidence for that they put together for his to charge him with attempted murder, whatever the hell I guess it was, I can't remember now. But they charged him for 22 years with was like 2 counts of attempting to kill somebody, and then he euthanized some tigers and shit like that. But you know, all that kind of shit. Part of me wonders if some of that shit wasn't just set up by her. To be completely honest, I mean, I don't know. He didn't seem. And there's probably people like, oh no, he's guilty as shit. He's guilty as shit. Well, if you think so, that's fine. It's just, I'm just stating my opinions. But to me, she would be the person to go to that length versus him. In all honesty, I mean, he was abused and shit as a kid, you know, because he was gay and his father basically hated him for it and everything else. So he had to deal with, you know, and then his brother dies, and so he's trying to put all this zoo and everything together in his brother's name. And I'm not saying you wouldn't kill to protect your home and your family's legacy, shit like that. I can understand, but to go that far, he just didn't seem like the type of guy. But then again, I mean, you do get pushed to that point by some stupid, hypocritical cunt. Yeah, I can see. I mean, she was just an evil person, in my opinion, and I just didn't feel like she was really that innocent herself. I mean, it's just her and her husband just give off this creepy vibe. Her husband looks like some dude who uses baby tiger cubs to lure kids into a windowless van. I mean, they just put up this facade, and I think behind closed doors, she puts on a giant tiger striped dildo and goes to town on him. I mean, that's the kind of shit. They're not. I'm sorry, but nobody is as innocent as they claim to be. I mean, everybody has mistakes and everybody does things that they're not proud of and blah 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 blah. But you don't go to that lengths to kind of make yourself better than somebody else, or to look or appear better than somebody else without some shit to hide. I mean, yeah, under fire for, and people are thinking that she possibly had something to do with her husband's disappearance, and then all of a sudden, all this shit comes up. Coincidence? I don't think so. And not to mention the fact her brother was a police officer. So you tell me how much of that evidence was swept under the rug and shit like that. How easy would it be to then fabricate shit? You know, if your brother's a police officer. I mean, I don't know. That's the thing about the whole thing is, nobody, to me, honestly, it's almost like, you remember playing Clue as a kid, you know, and everybody basically had the chance of being the murderer, you know, and any place could have, you know, been the place where it was done, or there was all these choices of weapons, but mostly it came down to the fact that anybody could have done it, and you had to, like, figure it out. It could have literally been the person yourself, the character that you know, pits in the game or whatever. It kind of reminded me of that a little bit, because it literally, anybody could have done these really stupid, ridiculous things, you know, that happened, like the You know, it honestly could have been anybody that made her husband disappear. It could have been, I mean, it could have been anybody who made the um, studio burn to the ground and things like that. Um, but the thing, I guess, that kind of frustrated me the most about it was nobody ever called her out on her bullshit. This Baskin lady. I mean, nobody ever called her out on her bullshit. I mean, truly, they did. Um, she's very hypocritical, and it's like I don't understand how you can run around accusing people of shit and saying, "Oh, they're horrible because they did this," and you did the same fucking thing. And just a lot of fishy things, you know, involved in that whole thing that I just never understood. Kind of didn't come to the light of day. Didn't kind of more or less got swept under the rug. And I'm sorry to say, but her brother being a police officer might have had something to fucking do with that. I just, yeah. But I guess the thing, more or less, for me, that, don't get me wrong, this Joe Exotic, he wanted to be famous, he wanted to do things, he wanted to blah blah blah, which you can't really hold that against him. I mean, that's a lot of people's dream, is to be famous and everything else. But at the core of it, you know, this was something his brother was really passionate about, was, you know, big cats and stuff. And so he's, you know, carrying a lot of this out for his brother. And it seemed like with this Carol Baskin lady, for me, it just seemed like she could really give a shit less about the animals. She was just more, she was literally focused on the notoriety, in my personal opinion. Because it's just one of those things where she just, there's just something off about that lady. I mean, let's see. And, you know, like, saying, oh, they're in these cages and everything else. And meanwhile, her cages were so shitty that I don't think I'd want to put prisoners in that fucking thing. I mean, it was just weeds growing up in it, real tiny for the size of the animal. And, I mean, at least you can say one thing about Joey Exotic is he had the room to do things. He had the room to sort of, you know, give the animals space and things like that. Where she just, seemed like that was kind of an afterthought. Let's see, where do they want this at? Did I drive past it? Oh, there. Well, as I get it all the way over here, now I gotta back it up all that way. Oh well. But yeah, it's quite the documentary. It's quite the trip. So hopefully I didn't ruin it for anybody who wanted to watch it, but it's still definitely worth the watch. I've literally watched it like 2 times because you kind of, I think, no, actually I'm on my 3rd time watching it. Excuse me, just because you pick up on little bitty, you know, little new things and tidbits every time you watch it. So it's just kind of one of those things where it's like there's no you think there's no fucking way that any of this could happen, but you know what they say, truth is often stranger than fiction. So anyways, yeah, we're over here. I think it's a mine, I'm pretty sure, because yeah, BHP, yeah, it's I'm pretty sure it's a mine. But what type of mine? Not sure. But yeah, like I've mentioned in other videos, my brother worked in a sand mine for fracking. That's where they got fracking sand from. Oh shit, not even close. So I mean, it's one of those things where you can say what you want about fracking, oh it's dangerous and everything else. Well, not if it's done the right way. And there really isn't any real hard scientific proof that fracking does anything to groundwater. I'm not real sure. I don't claim to be an expert on it, but I know my brother worked at the sand mine and stuff, and you know, fracking gave him a job. So can I hate on it? Can I be mad about it? No. Well, yeah, we're over here, got her backed in, safe and sound. And, yeah. So, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, made some changes to the truck. Went away from the half fenders. Now I got the double humps with the T-bars front and back now. But yeah, other than that, the truck really hasn't changed. Thought about going to a flat top, but I don't know. I've always liked the Ultra Cab sleepers, so I think I'm probably just gonna keep running it. Might do another run with this skin, but here, eventually, I think I'm going to have another skin come up. So I'm not gonna say what one, but I've made a shit ton of skins for the SCS 389, which, like I said in a previous video, this is an add-on pack. And I've got an engine add-on pack. That's why I got the N14 in here and the 18 speed. So, but yeah, so we got over here and got everything in here. No major incidences. So, like I said though, with this whole thing going on where people are stuck at home, kind of decided, you know what, I'm gonna make some more videos. I mean, even if it's only a matter of I don't usually get a crap ton of views, but oh well, you know, if I can help out a couple people, you know, make the day and kind of give them something to watch, something to look at, you know, and things like that. Hey, I'm cool with that. So, and I think it's starting to spit rain here. So, I guess without further ado, I'd just like to say thank you once again for the views. Appreciate it. Hopefully you guys like and subscribe. Really appreciate that if you guys do that too. Small channel, so hopefully I can get it to grow. But anyways, thanks for the views, thanks for the love, all that good stuff. So without further ado, I guess we'll end it here, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Micro Truck Simulator. Take it easy, guys.